Dames en here, die akademiese prosesie sal binnekort inbeweeg. U word versoek om asseblief op te staan.
Bomma le bontate, moloko-loko wa dirutegi o tla tsena mo nakong e kopana. Le kgopelwa go ema. Ladies and gentlemen, the academic procession will enter shortly. You're kindly requested to stand.
By virtue of the authority entrusted to me, I constitute this assembly as a legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. And during this assembly, degrees and diplomas with all associated rights and privileges will be conferred and awarded on the candidates whose names appear in the program. You may take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we request you to join us in a silent prayer or meditation to give thanks to the achievements of our students. Thank you. I would like to welcome most heartily the following people. Our recipient of the Honorary Doctorate, Professor Landman, and our Chancellor Medals candidate, Mr. Jackson, the Dean of the Faculty, Professor Letsusa, and of course, the Deputy Director representing the Registrar, Mr. Swanepoel, and the chairpersons of all schools, heads of departments, directors, emeriti and honorary professors, and all other lecturers, and all the spouses present here. I'd also like to welcome our Student Representative Council, who will present the SRC academic colors, and all persons to whom degrees and diplomas will be conferred and awarded this morning, our special guests, and all spouses, parents, everyone else, friends that's here, and all the dignitaries among us. We welcome you to this great University of Pretoria. It is indeed a privilege for me to officiate this graduation ceremony of the Faculty of Theology and Religion on behalf of the Senate of the University of Pretoria. And in this ceremony, we will have 156 degrees conferred, 27 diplomas awarded, and we will have also 21 doctorates, an honorary doctorate, and a Chancellor's medal, which makes this a very special occasion for us to have this combination of qualifications that the university is offering this morning. And as you may know, doctoral degrees are the highest academic qualification, and these are awarded to deserving candidates who have proved their mettle that they will be able to produce new knowledge. It is advanced knowledge, advanced research skills, and it is accompanied with a lot of rigor, which means you have to be able to do certain things and tick all the boxes that are required. And we are truly appreciative that this faculty has produced so many doctorates in this ceremony. And for the entire ceremonies of this university, we'll have 37 sessions, and we'll have over 12,000 degrees and diplomas. Our honorary doctorate this morning is bestowed. This is a very symbolic recognition of an individual with exceptional qualities and often lifelong contributions to the society and the field, and in this case, the theology and religion field. And it's a mark of excellence, and similarly, with the Chancellor's medal, it is an honorary award recognizing outstanding achievements in industry, research, and business. So these two remarkable candidates that will join us now on the stage, as soon as we request the Dean to do that, will give us a brief address of how they see things, or what they've done, or all of these other interesting things that we would like to hear about scholarship and industry interactions. So I'm sure that this is something that is really great for us as a university and the faculty. And we know that in order for the Senate and Council to approve these, it was a very rigorous process. It is not just one of those degrees or medals that are offered for any other reason other than academic excellence or excellence in work that is happening in society. And before much ado, really, and I don't want to go into a long address this morning, because we would be delighted to listen to our awardees. I would like to request the Dean to introduce to me the candidates for the presentation of the award of honorary doctorate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I have the honor to introduce to you Prof. Christina Landman, for the conferment of the degree Doctor of Divinity, Honoris Causa. Christina Landman has lectured and researched at the University of South Africa, UNISA, for 42 years in theology and oral history, focusing on the healing of memories in marginalized groups. In 1991, she was the first woman to become a professor of theology at a South African university. She has published over 100 articles in accredited journals, as well as 5 academic and 12 popular books on social issues from a theological perspective, giving voice to those muted by poverty, social prejudice, and unhealthy religious discourses, reconstructing and rescoping religious discourse towards healing and entitlement. As a gender and ecclesial political activist since 1980s, she has addressed vulnerability and empowerment at more than 200 national and international academic conferences and in more than 400 popular articles. She has been a columnist for Bild newspaper for over 30 years. She has been the editor-in-chief of the subject journal of the Church History Society of Sovereign Africa for 18 years and an editor of the Oral History Journal of South Africa, Social Memory Studies, and conference proceedings of the Oral History Association of South Africa. She is one of only 2 women ever elected to the executive of the General Synod of the Uniting Reformed Churches in Sovereign Africa. She ministered in Sakelwe, the then township in Dahlstrom in Mpumalanga, and Caroline Park, the so-called colored township in Rustenburg. She was a member of the Advisory Council of National Orders of the President of the Republic of South Africa for 10 years. She received accolades such as the most published woman at UNISA and was chosen out of 925 nominations to receive the CEO Magazine Woman of the Year Award in the category of Education and Training. She holds 7 degrees in classical languages, Greek and Latin, history and antiquity, church polity, and pastoral therapy. 2 of these are doctorates. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the honorary doctorate on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree of Doctor of Divinity, Honoris Causa, with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Thank you very much. We'll now give Professor Landman an opportunity to address the congregation.
Good morning, members of the congregation and all the students here who are going to receive their degrees today. Welcome here and thank you for accepting me here in this position. When I was in grade 2, the teacher asked the class, "Who wants to become nothing?" So I put up my hand. "Now, how so?" the teacher asked, and I answered, "You know, my grandmother told me that a woman should not become something, They should stay just as God has made them and for what God has made them. But I have to tell you, years later, when I received my first doctorate in theology, my grandmother was there. She was already fragile, but she was there with her multicolored little shoes and a butterfly in her hair. Now, today, in 7 minutes and in 5 points, I want to celebrate life as a career academic in theology, a choice neither my grandma or my mother could make. This is to remind the professors here of the excitement of their careers, and all of you, all the upcoming academics, that this is your future in the academy. 5 points. You know, in my congregation, they call me the 7-point dominee. But today I'll be kind to you and only have 5 points. And you know what's so wonderful about announcing the points is that you know when it's going to finish, which will hopefully be in 7 minutes. Now, the first and the most beautiful thing about being an academic is that you are constantly exposed to the finest minds in your field. In my case, when I was a young lecturer, my colleagues were Professor David Bosch, Ferdinand Deist, Adrio Koenig. Yeah, you remember those names on books, huh? And the first black professors who were appointed at UNISA, they were my colleagues, Professor Simon Maimela and Bonganjalo Goba. And I remember that there at UNISA, the professors, they had a discussion group we called Credo. Credo is the Latin word for I believe. And then we came together and we analyzed each other's faith. Yeah? Is it healthy? Is it probable? Is it applicable? Yeah, and we spoke about politics, you know, the 1980s, 1990s. Good heavens, politics was a dangerous thing. But we, as academics, we didn't shun away from discussing politics, religious behavior in a country where there are so many ways of being religious, and it was always top-notch. No, to be an academic is to walk with the most highly developed and analyzing minds. Now, are you not looking forward to that? Yes, I hear a yes. Now, number two. Secondly, this is a career. An academic career is a career in which you are pressured to develop your mind. Huh? Isn't that wonderful? You are under pressure to develop your mind. You are forced to grow. You can't stay where you are. And the university actually sends you all over the world to go and meet with the global giants and start collaborations. Now, in the Netherlands, I met with Catharina Alkes, and she was the first woman to be a professor in a chair for women's studies in Europe. And then I could sit at the feet of the cream of the circle of African women theologians, Mercy Ambodoyoye, Teresia Hinga, many others. And from them, I learned about moral agency and what it is also from a woman's perspective, and how to look pastorally after those who are not free to be moral. Those who are not free to be moral because they are being held captive by the discourses of a power-happy society. I'm at number 3 already. Thirdly, the wonder of being an academic is that you have to publish. You have to publish. And therefore, in some sense, you are an influencer. We all think we are very, very big influencers, but you know, those guys on social media, they have hundreds and millions of people following them. We as academics, if 100 people would read an academic article, we are ecstatic, huh? Look, people are reading me. But you know, we must never forget this job of being and influencer. Because in South Africa, the religious voice is strong and influential, but it is also so diverse that it is almost impossible to follow. Now, the difference between an academic speaking and writing publicly and a social media influencer is this. We research before we write. We think before we write. And that's not always done by people on the social media, isn't that so? So, because we are disciplined by being academics. And we can and we should influence government policy on religion and the regulation of religion. I mean, you must understand it's difficult for a country to have one policy on religion and the regulation of religion where there are, at least 40,000 independent churches. There are black churches, white churches, doomsday churches, grass-eating churches, gay competent churches, mailers churches, Satanists, and a multitude of other hornsroepies. So, this is only one religion of the many we have here, and therefore academics are to give some sort of listenable voice to religion. And as academics, we can and we should also be the voice of the voiceless, of those who are robbed of a dignified life, of women without hope, and even of oppressed men. Men really seem to have lost their voice. Men should find their female voice and start talking about their pain, don't you think? Oh, I hear some laughter. Academics are the voice of people living with incurable diseases and have little access to medical care. They are the voice of people living with disabilities, people who live in fear and with anxiety. Maybe people in mining needs a voice. Maybe people in management need a voice. So, because we don't always know about all your fears and anxieties. Number 4. Fourthly, I think the wonder of being an academic is that it's not all about hard facts. It's about facts, but not hard facts. You know what academic work is about and should be about? Is to do it with passion and curiosity. Imagine when you start a new job, and on your worksheet stand, whatever you do it with passion and curiosity. That is what academic work is all about. Passion and curiosity. Gaan verwonder jou aan die wêreld met passie. This is what it is all about to be an academic. Om jou te verwonder aan die lewe om jou. And so I can spend and could spend, some of my academic time being curious about what in religion makes you ill and how religion can heal you. I can be curious about why mothers defend their sons who beat them. I can be curious about how a pastor dealt with young women who sought an abortion during COVID-19. I can be curious about how it affects everybody's health when a man of faith believes the Lord will condomize him. I can be curious about why women turn to covert power, like withholding love or getting pregnant, when they feel they do not have the same power as a man in a relationship. I can be curious about people shift their identities from strong to obedient, from situation to situation, simply to survive. I'm already at number 5. Lastly, the wonder of the career academic's life centers around you, the students, because you constantly renew us. A majority of my doctoral students became professors themselves, and so can you. And two of them, also moderators, the high heels of our church, Mary Ann Plaatjes van Huffel and Professor Leopold Modise, yeah, they became moderators. And then I had to listen to them because they listened to me first. It is especially a student who calls you 3 minutes past 4 on a Sunday morning to ask whether you have received his next chapter that keep you awake and on your toes. In conclusion, sir, 50 years ago, I finished my BA admission, which it was called in those days. You had to do a BA admission because before you could enroll for a doctorate. And I finished my BA admission with Greek, Hebrew, and Latin as my main subjects here at this university during a time when women were not ordained as dominees in my church tradition. I nevertheless approached the theological faculty here to enroll as a theological student. But I was shown away because I was a woman. And today, with the conferment of this honorary doctorate 50 years later, after I've been shown away, isn't this a joyous overturn? On behalf of my grandmother and mother, for whom it was unthinkable that a woman can become a professor in theology, let alone a pastor, I sincerely thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Landman, for those inspiring and a very transformative journey in your life as an academic and the words of encouragements to the up-and-coming generation of academics. We truly appreciate it, and that 5 decades later, you are back here at this university to give us this testimony. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice Principal, I have the honor to introduce to you Cornelius Johannes Jackson for the presentation of the Chancellor's Medal. Cornelius Johannes Niels Jackson grew up in Pretoria, immatriculated at Hoërskool Oosmoed, and studied at the University of Pretoria, where he received a BA Hons degree in Afrikaans cum laude. After teaching for 3 years, he switched to journalism, becoming a reporter on church affairs for Beeld. He worked in various capacities during his 23 years and 6 months with Beeld. Apart from stints as sub-editor and news editor, he wrote columns on different topics and reported on everything from cricket to crime and from national budget to climate issues. However, his primary focus for most of his time at Beeld remained church and religious affairs. During his time at Beeld, he received 2 ATKV Media Virkie Awards and a special Andrew Murray Award for his reporting on religious affairs, among other accolades. After leaving Beeld, he was the editor of Kerkbode, the newspaper of the Dutch Reformed Church, for 5 years. He then retired, but continued doing freelance writing. 5 books flowed from his pen, his last being an analysis based on his journalistic observations of how the Dutch Reformed Church adapted and evolved in 3 decades from 1990 to 2020. Apart from his work as a journalist, Niels is also a chess player who represented the then Northern Transvaal at the senior level. He's a keen amateur photographer and also writes poetry. He's been happily married to Louise for more than 4 decades and is the proud father of 2 adult daughters, Christy and Rihanna. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to present the Chancellor's Medal to the candidate.
I have the honor of requesting Mr. Jackson to share his insights about this interesting journey of journalism. It looks different these days to be a journalist. Let's hear from the veterans.
Thank you, Professor Musia, Vice Principal of the University, Professor Letsosa, Dean of the Faculty of Religion, and his colleagues, and all the other theologians in front of me, friends and families. Please allow me to recognize my wife, Louise, other family and friends, and especially my 95-year-old mother, Rina Jackson. Maar ek is so bly dat ek vandag hier kan wees. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. As a journalist, I want to share 4 observations with you. Firstly, how things have changed at this university since I was a first-year student in 1980. Back then, Tukkies was exclusively white, and apart from other languages in language departments, exclusively Afrikaans. I remember a poll done in the student newspaper Die Parelby about how students felt about the possible opening up of the university to people of color. Just under 50% of the respondents were against anything of this kind. A small minority felt that perhaps the university could welcome people of color at postgraduate level. A small majority felt that perhaps the university could welcome people of color at postgraduate level or perhaps for after-hour studies. The support for opening for all courses and all classes was much less, and only about 0.5% of the respondents said open up completely, including the residences. One can truly say that the University of Pretoria was back then one of the societal pillars of apartheid. And yet, it was then at the same university that I got into contact with ideas that made me change my mind about apartheid, that made me realize that apartheid can't work and did not offer any future. It came through some of the literature that we studied, through remarks that some of the lecturers made in classes, through students' activities such as debating competitions, through some of the guest speakers that the Students' Council invited for lunch hour talks. And now we are such a colorful group of people together, really an example of what the Rainbow Nation can be. And I must add, without all the conflict that some other universities experience. And if I read the program, then the students come from far outside the borders of South Africa as well. Professor Musia, you and your colleagues run an institution of which we can be very proud. Secondly, how things have changed at the Faculty of Theology as it was known then. You heard the story about the brilliant young student, Christina Landman, who was turned away because she was a woman. And here she is today to receive an honorary doctorate. And we see other females as lecturers in this faculty. The faculty was not, I see Professor Landman's honorary doctorate as a kind of apology, but also as a celebration of how far we have come. The faculty was not only exclusively male, it was also exclusively white, Afrikaans, and Reformed. Now we have a lovely ecumenical mix of students from different traditions that can enrich each other with a cross-pollination of ideas. The faculty nowadays is sometimes unfairly criticized and accused of all kinds of heresies by a small minority of fundamentalist members of some of the churches they serve. I don't see any grounds for these accusations. On the contrary, I think that the young ministers trained by this faculty are some of the best reasons to be optimistic about the future of the church. Professor Letsosa and your colleagues, you really produce excellent young theologians. Thank you for that. Thirdly, I made my career of reporting on churches and theologies, and it was often difficult. I sometimes thought that churches and theologians don't understand journalism. And back at the office, I sometimes felt that journalists don't understand the church or faith or theology. And that lack of understanding from some of my colleagues and bosses at the newspaper increased as secularization of our society increased. And that is an important reason why I am so thankful for the award that I received today. It means someone, more than someone, an institution with the gravitas of the University of Pretoria understands and appreciates what I try to do through my career. Thank you very much for that. And lastly, even though sometimes I felt the two worlds between which I worked did not always understand each other, journalism on the one hand and theology on the other hand, and other academic disciplines as well, have much in common. From both sides, people look at the world, we observe aspects of the world we live in, we try to interpret those observations, and we report on it. The difference is that journalism is much more messy than academic endeavors. We work against very strict deadlines, which means sometimes you have to tell a story before you really had the time to digest it yourself. Academics have much more time to weigh their thoughts, to pick their words, and to tidy up what they write. Their standards for perfection are much higher. And yet, in their different ways, they both try to facilitate understanding. Both sides try to bring clarity of thought to society. And it is exactly at that point where both these pursuits are in trouble, because we came up against the keyboard warrior. People who, without any credentials or facts, can trash the hard work of academics and journalists. We are exposed to conspiracy theories and attitudes like everybody can decide for him or herself what the truth is. I wish I had answers for academics and for journalists. Unfortunately, I don't. This is the challenge we face, and against which we should carry on as best we can with the noble pursuits of academic work and thoughtful journalism. And then we must trust that good will prevail. Isn't that, the trust that good will prevail, what good theology teaches us? As we say in some churches, God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landman, for those inspirational words and the journey of transformation from the days gone by. Yes, indeed, the University of Pretoria has been through a very interesting journey of transformation, which I must add that it started intensifying during the time of Professor Johan van Zyl, and then Carly Pistorius, and Cheryl de la Rey. We just took over from there and perfected it. But thank you very much for those inspiring words. I now request the Dean to introduce to me the candidates present here whose names appear in the program.
Mr. Vice Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Joseph Olufemi Ali, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Adoption as an Alternative for African Couples Living with Infertility, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate investigated the acceptability of adoption among African couples. The study identifies key factors influencing their decision-making and highlights how pastoral care can encourage acceptance of adoption while preserving the dignity of the family. Though participants generally saw adoption in a positive light, few were willing to consider it themselves. Concerns include lack of kinship, fear of judgment, adjustment issues, anxiety about abandonment, and concern about being able to love a child. Positive factors included good personal experiences, education, and the acceptance of the family and faith community. Pastors and the faith community can help to reduce the stigma and provide education and support for couples who choose to adopt. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
I introduce to you Nana Yenga Baltahazar, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Reconstructing an African Oikotheology for the Democratic Republic of Congo, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate examined the concept of African oikotheology within the framework of African theology, employing literary methodologies. The thesis was underpinned by several pivotal concepts, including oikos, the common good, and exodus. The analysis incorporated various theories derived from integrating African ethics of Ubuntu, African perspectives on reconciliation, and social justice theology. The research revealed that the oikos metaphor, when contextualized within the lived experiences of the Congolese, evokes feelings of discomfort and marginalization. This insight led to the development of social justice, which emphasizes the common good that all human beings are entitled to. This perspective calls upon the Church of the DRC to envision a more promising future for the nation. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Bonita Bueta Pretorius, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled A Pastoral Approach to Euthanasia in Geriatric Palliative Care in a South African Context, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate designed a pastoral approach to euthanasia by combining spiritual care with insights from the fields of palliative care and psychology. The model incorporates strategies from narrative and cognitive behavioral therapy with religion to address the multifaceted needs of older persons who request euthanasia. Pertinent factors include the necessity of consent, the influence of depression on end-of-life decisions, and the role of pastoral care, support, and guidance. The model aims to provide patient-centered care, fully respecting older persons' dignity and autonomy while addressing their psychological and spiritual needs. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Maria Shadibo Diale, who has complied with the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Counseling of Couples Before Bohadi, a Pastoral Challenge, prepared under my supervision. In the thesis, Counseling of Couples Before Bohadi, a Pastoral Challenge, the candidate explored the process of Bohadi and its impact on the family development in African people. The object is to bring the two families together. However, the high price of Bohadi resulted in moments being treated as objects. The problems become a hindrance to the man who lacks the necessary resources, resulting in a woman being a victim of family violence. The findings reveal the couples are experiencing domestic violence, but prefer cultural proverbs to resolve their problems. The researcher advocates pastoral inclusive and cultural process, a shepherding pastoral care development by Gherkin help this study to guide couples who have experienced trauma. When Gherkin's model of pastoral care failed, Pollard's positive deconstruction to be added in moving them forward. Couples must be counseled before starting the Bohadi process in order to deal with the lived experience. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Tozomile Abednego-Fuku, who has complied with requirements for the degree of philosophy, specializing in practical theology, under the supervision of Professor Milan Nell, with myself as co-supervisor. In this thesis, Developing an Inclusive Missional Church Beyond Interracial Conflict and Cultural Divisions, a Practical Theological Approach, the candidate acknowledged that at the date of writing, the Moroleta Circuit of the Methodist Church experienced interracial conflict and cultural divisions. The thesis noted that racial categorization, cultural differences, and class and language disparities were the main contributing factors. The research took an empirical form, especially looking at the relationship between white, black, and colored people. Various scholars point to the disappointing failure of the church and theology to respond appropriately to the complexity and diversity of culture. The findings indicated that transformation is vital to align with the circuit's identification with Christ. Furthermore, great emphasis must be placed on collaboration between congregations of the circuit. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Tristan Kapp, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Secret Self-Knowledge, Considering Sex Magic as Post-Theistic Spirituality in Eastern, Western, and African Esotericism, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate engages the contentious issue of globalizing esotericism beyond the West, which emerged following Antoine Favre's introduction of Western esotericism as a discipline in late 20th century scholarship. Consequently, several debates arose about how esoteric scholarship should navigate this endeavor. This comparativist and descriptivist study examines the complex relationship between sexuality and spirituality in Western, Eastern, and African religions, from Aleister Crowley's Magia Sexualis to Marie Laveau's Voodoo. It examined esotericism in religious ontology, sexuality polemics from Foucault to Freud, and digital conspirituality via the esoteric spirituality, along with philosophical self-constructions revealing sexuality as sacred, esoteric, and post-theistic spirituality via considering paganism, thelema, Satanism, New Age, and Theosophy in the West, Egyptian paganism, Hinduism, and Buddhism in the East, and African traditional religion, Sufism, and Afro-American conjure in Africa. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Gavin Michal, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Sabbatian Influences on the Hasidic and Mitnagdic Movements, an Excursion into Messianic Kabbalah and its disseminators in the aftermath of Shabbatai Tzvi. The candidate explores the extent of the theological influence that the 17th century Sabbatian movement of the false messianic claimant Shabbatai Tzvi exerted on the early 18th century Hasidic movement of the Baal Shem Tov, as well as on the conservative Orthodox Mitnagdic movement of the Vilna Gaon. The problem was that from 1670, the Sabbatian movement was officially branded as a heresy, and most traditional and academic scholarship denied significant Sabbatian influences on the subsequent movements. This study challenges much of the previous scholarship, focusing on traces of Sabbatian ideology that are split over into the mainstream rabbinic texts produced between the periods of interest. It finds that the latter orthodoxies were subjected to fundamental Sabbatian influences, prompting a re-evaluation of the extent of the Sabbatian theological legacy. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Ciela Jack Moncha, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Commitment of Church Members as an Expression of the Understanding of the Missio Dei, a case study prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate investigates how church members' level of commitment influenced the decline of membership in mainline churches. The investigation focuses on the Maranatha Reformed Church of Christ as a case study. A qualitative investigation resulted in first-hand information from church members. Based on the findings, the concept of church attendance, church participation, church volunteering, and church contribution was developed to challenge the further decline in churches. It was further found that new strategies are necessary for the church, enabling every member to commit fully. The candidate hopes to stem the decline in church membership in the MRCC and other mainline churches. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Mawetu Msebe, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Sustainable Community Development and Local Churches in Tembisa, a Practical Theological Perspective, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, Sustainable Community Development and Local Churches in Tembisa, a Practical Theological Perspective, the candidate investigates the contribution of local churches to sustainable community development in Tembisa. Through findings from this study, the candidate acknowledges that a myriad of challenges, such as social issues and poor quality of life, affect the Tembisa community as they do in other parts of the world. However, these challenges coexist with the continuous growth of local churches within communities. The study recognizes local churches in Tembisa and other communities as valuable resources for sustainable community development. However, the study revealed that local churches' contribution to sustainable community development is limited. Thus, the candidate proposes a practical strategy for local churches to enhance their involvement in sustainable community development, specifically within the Tembisa community. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Titi Mwapfa, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled A Good Wife, a Theological Challenge to Cultural Practices and Gender-Based Violence in Rishinga, Zimbabwe, prepared under my supervision. In the thesis, the candidate utilized a womanist theoretical framework to challenge the notion of a good wife. This was done with a critical consideration of the cultural and traditional practices that exacerbate gender-based violence in the chosen context. The candidate indicated how these practices undermine women's human rights and deprive them of their sense of worth. Following a qualitative approach, the students analyzed narratives of women and men in this context and found that harmful components of culture regarding the notion of a good wife is imprinted from a young age when girls are taught the definition of a good mother. A womanist theological anthropology as framework for the cultural religious nexus is suggested, coupled with the enforcement of the provisions of the Bill of Rights. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Christoffel Bernardus Prinsloo. The candidate complied with all the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy, specializing in church history and church polity under my supervision. In this thesis, redefining the church's mission towards a contextual and missional ecclesiology in response to poverty in South Africa, the candidate explores the transformative potential of adopting a contextual and missional ecclesiology to enhance the engagement of the Nederduitse Hervormde Kerk van Afrika with poverty alleviation. The research integrated historical analysis, theoretical exploration, and practical frameworks, revealing the limitations of existing ecclesiological models and proposing a shift towards a missional ecclesiology grounded in the Trinitarian mission of God, or the Missio Dei. The findings suggest that this shift could transform the Church from a traditionally structured institution into a dynamic, community-engaged entity with strategic recommendations focusing on decentralizing decision-making, fostering partnerships, and the reorientation of diaconal activities. The study underscores the significant role that faith communities can play in social transformation, justice, and reconciliation within contemporary South African society. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Martin Johannes Slabbert, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Die Filippense Hymne as hermeneutiese sleutel tot die brief aan die Filippense, 'n intertekstuele analise en 'n auteurskapsattribusiemodel under the supervision of Professor Gert Steyn. In this thesis, the candidate explores the Philippians hymn in chapter 2, verse 6 to 11, as a key to understanding the broader theological and rhetorical structure of the epistle to the Philippians. The research analyzes echoes, allusions, and neologisms within the text, revealing how these elements contribute to intertextual and intratextual dialogism, enhancing the coherence of the letter. Using Patrick Juola's authorship attribution model, the candidate investigates the origins of the hymn and its deliberate incorporation by Paul, highlighting its central role in the letter. The study concludes that the hymn was not merely a liturgical addition, but a critical element of Pauline theology, offering fresh insights into the theological discourse of the early Christian community and contributing to the broader field of biblical studies. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Marijke Strydom, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Religious Intolerance in Digital Narratives, a critical analysis of how religious studies professionals can play a role in the responsible use of digital narratives, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate explores the implications that the ample availability of digital narratives may have for religious education. It was found that narratives can have a dualistic influence, propagating tolerance and intolerance. Religious education seeks to create better functioning multi-religious societies by propagating stronger tolerance skills. It was found that religious education specialists can play a role in encouraging the responsible use and creation of narratives. The quantitative literature review reveals different theories that explain why narratives influence the human mind. These theories clarify that narratives may potentiate curricula, leading to better media and religious literacies. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Tendai Takawira, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Investigation into the Role of Women During Early Christianity, Implications for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Zimbabwe, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate traces how the pre-AD 70 early Christianity rites chronicled the role women played alongside their male counterparts, as reflected in the Pauline and Deuteropauline corpora and the Gospels, a hybrid methodological framework utilizing a social-scientific and African feminism interpretative lens, was engaged to see what light it sheds on the selected New Testament passages. These passages speak on women's role as a case study materials to evaluate the Seventh-day Adventist Zimbabwe's ordination ban on eldership and pastoral roles against its church constitutions and administrative policies, whether derived from a continuation of how it was during early Christianity or based on cultural dynamics. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Peter Kunatefu, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Nehemiah's Transformational Leadership and National Bowling Strategies Interpreted in the Context of Lesotho, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate examines Nehemiah's leadership in the book of Nehemiah to see how he employed the leadership style that assisted him in rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. Different leadership models were identified to measure the kind of leader Nehemiah was. The thesis explores the political circumstances in Lesotho that called for a different leadership style to address the country's challenges. The historical background in which Nehemiah ministered is provided to ascertain his leadership style. Nehemiah's leadership features are identified, including qualities and strategies he used to accomplish the task of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. The leadership aspects of Nehemiah are interpreted in the context of Lesotho to see how they could be relevant. Nehemiah's transformational leadership is proposed as a model that can assist Lesotho in addressing its challenges. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Roger Moentem, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Peace Mediation, the Role of John 7, verse 53 to chapter 8, verse 11, for possible conflict management in Reformed churches in Northwest region of Cameroon, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate focuses on the intricate tapestry of the social fabric of the Ware patriarchal community, exploring the delicate balance between cultural traditions, religious practices, and the treatment of women in the application of John 7:53, 8 to 11. At the heart of this research lies the vexing issue of wife snatching, also known as elepto, which persist alongside orthodox religious institutions within the community. The project attempted to dismantle the complexities of how the patriarchal community of Ware manages conflicts, particularly those intertwined with religion and gender dynamics. The study sought to illuminate women's lived experiences in the community, shedding light on the conflict that wife snatching generates. The study outlines the role of Scripture, drawing potential parallels from John chapter 7, 53 to 8, 11, to understand its influence on attitudes towards gender-based conflicts. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you the Chancellor Joseph Useni. The candidate complied with all the requirements in terms of the degree Doctor of Philosophy, specializing in church history and church polity under my supervision. In this thesis, a critique of land reform in Zimbabwe from the perspective of Miroslav Volf's public theology, the candidate builds on the public theology of Miroslav Volf, using it as a benchmark and source of criticism. The candidate uses a qualitative and multidisciplinary approach, drawing on Volf's writings about his social life, as well as other literary works, images, words, affirmations, historical context, and textual analysis. The study suggests a strategic approach to Christian public engagement, which is based on the findings of Wolff's public theology. In pursuing justice, the Church's isolationist policies and the need to restore proper church-state relations must be addressed. Based on the study's findings, land reform in Southern Africa intends to address historical injustices and inequalities in land distribution, ensure effective and sustainable farming practices, support emerging farmers, prevent violent land grabs and unstable economies, and promote the common good. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confirm the degree on the candidate.
Don't leave the podium before your candidate is finished. Just wait here. I hereby confer the degree of philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Mr. Kishing Wong, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled The Influence of the Malay Religious Identity on Non-Muslim Public Roles, a Socio-Religious Analysis, prepared under my supervision and with Dr. Anna Bakele as co-supervisor. In his thesis, The Influence of the Malay Religious Identity on Non-Muslim Public Roles, a Socio-Religious Analysis, the candidate identifies and examines the social and psychological components of the Malay Muslim identity and their influences on non-Muslim public roles. The results indicate that the salient identity of Malay in Malaysia was Malay Muslim, and the Malay religious identity displayed substantial challenge towards non-Muslims, especially when perceiving that non-Muslims should not participate in government employment or typically hold prominent positions. The Quran does not explicitly advocate for the exclusion of non-Muslims from positions of public authority. Nonetheless, Quranic verses that encourage a sense of superiority and set boundaries between believers and non-believers are where prejudice and discrimination against non-Muslims rest. This study suggests that the psychological reaction of religious identity is more than religious teachings, and the dimensions involved are strong self-identification and a sense of superiority as ummah, differentiation and comparison between Muslims and non-Muslims. The study contributes to a broader knowledge concerning Islam, in brackets, Muslim identity, from the perspective of socio-religious psychology. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Divinity. Lalani Bey. Petrus Bloem. Alicia Bosman. Ilse Marie Kotsia. With distinction, Zana Drika Dalanga. Helga Duplessis. With distinction, Sheldon Her Graham. With distinction, Carla Guest. With distinction, Stephanie Jacobs. Ziandre Jacobs. Karin Zaneke. Thian Meyreng. Vilma Nel. With distinction, Christian Petersen. Marno Pleasure. With distinction, Carla Smith. Roy Stewart. For the Master of Theology, specializing in church history and church polity, Ndizulafi Mudau. Specializing science of religion and missiology, and with distinction, Faneli Sibonge Mbuli. Specializing in science and of religion and missiology, Fika Mati. Specializing in New Testament studies, Peter Devenish. Specializing in New Testament studies, Edmond Ndarazi. Specializing in Old Testament studies, Tabang Lechem. Specializing in practical theology and with distinction, Gerard de Jager. Specializing in practical theology, Lindelwa Kumbaga. Practical theology, Danford Makwezi. Practical theology, Fredolin Manganye. My student here, practical theology with distinction, Tato Molipo. Practical theology, Kagiso Murud. Practical theology, Tabang Motale. Practical theology with distinction, Mtunzi Pani. Practical theology, Lydia Records. Religion studies, Jade Nell. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the Bachelor of Theology honors. Dudu Mati. Ndibaleni Rabonda. Sherry Vermaak. Lucky Zondi. With distinction, Paul Badenost. Shwaita Faibon. Kyobakile Koloti. Kensane Makwakwa with distinction. Khabo Mokobane. With distinction, Martinez van der Waal. Simbarashe Skaba. With distinction, Jacques Ayman. With distinction, Boniwe Maduna. With distinction, Annalie Nodier. Neo Jacobs. With distinction, Letabo Maboja. Tandoluhle Masondo. With distinction, Caroline Motandari. Tembile Ngubo. Lina Sangwe. With distinction, Tabisile Sindani. Pelele Dumakude, Vuisanani Ngeta. With distinction, Gain Kim. Gift Lehod. Kanyisa Maluleke. Yitmen Manabalala. With distinction, Tulisile Mashehu. With distinction, Rolandi McGear. David Mufutsana. Andile Ngema. Willem Prinsloo. With distinction, Rosani Silapiani. Tandukolo Titi. Tembisile Chabalala. Nelisiwe Mchweni. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Arts in Theology. Peter Groenewald. Sinazo Lukozi. Itumeleng Mabie. Makekaya Malunjo. Koketso Manyika. Sinenhlanhla Masola. Makgetha Masuku. Gilonde Ngomezulu. Makari Mokau. Mahlatse Moloto. Ofense Muruani. Prince Mpofu. Vangile Mchali. Loyanda Nkosi. Inga Peter. Kopo Sebat. Mbali Sewela. Tlo Tefu. Gali Kulu. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Divinity. Jordan Beauty, or is it Beatty?
Beatty.
Beatty. Hilda Marie Buota. Drian Hrobela. Lovemore Nandolo. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the diploma in theology. Pelisiwe Bele. Robin de Grasse. Bomikazi Jali. Amahle Kwinana. Tshegofatso Mabena. Mpho Major. Sindisiwe Malu. Thokozani Masombuka. Desri Muila. Lebohang Moshe. Samkeliwe Mpofu. Bongani Mtembu. Kaku Mudau. Zinhle Ngidi. Amogelang Ngwenya. Gift Ngwenya. Kolile Sambo. Ntokozo Shabangu. Masiho Shongwana. John Sidwe. Zipho Sonti.
I now request the Dean to introduce to me the candidate for the presentation of the award for the Vice Chancellor and Principal.
Mr. Vice Principal, I have the honor to introduce to you Hilda Marie Botha for the presentation of the award of the Vice Chancellor and Principal. Hilda Marie Botha complied with all the requirements for the Bachelor of Divinity degree on 19 January 2025. Hilda Marie Botha is acknowledged as the overall top achiever in the Faculty of Theology and Religion for the year 2024. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to present the candidate with the award of the Vice Chancellor and Principal.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us give our graduates a big hand of applause. Thank you. And now, listen carefully. Unless you are graduating, and I would like to ask the graduates to applaud their families, friends, and spouses for their support over the many years. Thank you. We have now come to the end of the formal proceedings. And I would like to thank each one of you for having attended this ceremony and also applauded each candidate that received either the degree or the awards. And I would like to thank Professor Landman for her address, as well as Mr. Jackson for his address. I'd like to thank the Dean and all heads of departments and supervisors. And for now, I'm sure we'll be able to invite everyone outside. I'm told there are refreshments there. I don't know what they are, so I don't want to commit them. But they told me they are there. And now we are requested to stand for the singing of the national anthem.
Thank you.
virtue of the powers vested in me, I hereby dissolve this assembly of the University of Pretoria.